So we're in the race. Have you been enjoying this series? It's been really good, just challenging. We're in part 3 of it today. We're going to jump right in. I got a lot I want to cover with you. We're going to jump right back into our passage that we've been reading every week in Hebrews 12. And it says, therefore, since we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so you will not grow weary and lose heart. We're going to talk about rest today. You know, when you're in kindergarten, do you remember kindergarten, I think, was like the year that you rested. I don't remember doing it past kindergarten in school, but do you remember, especially in the 80s, those of you who were in the 80s with me in elementary school, when you had the mat that was like that trifold mat, your body used to fit on a mat like that big. And, you know, you folded up and you had it in your little place in the room, and every day you did your lunch and all your stuff, and then you knew it was coming and you could feel it like a thunderstorm. Like you're like, oh, it's coming, right? And she would dim the lights and she would say, go get your mat, and everybody lay down, and you were angry about it. And don't you wish you could go back to that little kindergarten child and go, get it together and take the naps. Take all the naps. The naps are all that matter. They're all that matter in the world. So take the naps. Take every nap you can, right? So you would get the nap, and your teacher would say, well, if you're not going to nap, then you need to what? Right, rest. You need to lay still. You need to lay quiet. And there was always a kid in your class. His name was Jamie in mine, and he would roll around and like crawl, like, you know, with his mat around the room, different places. And, you know, there was always a couple of those kids that could not. Side note, but I was telling somebody earlier, my son Walker's 5 and he'll start kindergarten in August. And depending on the day of the week that we're on, I feel good about it, and sometimes I don't feel good about it at all. And, you know, so this particular day, he was just a hot mess. He's redheaded and freckled, and the typical redheaded freckled child. So whatever we were doing that day, I remember I called my mom and I said, somewhere, it was the day school got out for the summer, I said, somewhere in Madison right now, there is a teacher who is so excited that she has just let go of 25 kindergarten students, and she is breathing the biggest sigh of relief of all time. That woman has no idea that August 5th or whatever it is, she's going to meet a little boy named Walker Wyndham. We're not going to tell her, but we're going to pray for her all summer long, right? So, you know, your teacher knew that you had been up very early. You've had a long day. By the time you get to school, you had to get up, you'd rode the bus. Everybody rode the bus back then. There were no car lines in the 80s. Everybody rode the bus. So you were on the bus at some ungodly hour. You know, you had barely eaten. You're tired, you're stressed, all this stuff. And so you imagine a 5-year-old by that point of the day is done. And guess who else is done? Teacher is done, right? And she knows that there's a whole other part of the day you've got to live when you get home. And so she knows that she's got to get you to bedtime. She's parenting, she's partnering with the parents, and so she's getting them to bedtime. So you got to have a nap. You got to take a time out. She knew that at some point in the day, there's a part where you got to go, stop for a minute, right? And we complained about it. I would take all the naps. I went on bed rest with Walker at 31 weeks because he tried to be born so early. There's a shocker, right? So 31 weeks I'm on bed rest, and I complained about it. And there's been so many times I'm like, I want to be put on bed rest again. Like, that's just all I want, you know? But you have permission to rest. By God, he has given you permission to rest. Now remember, this is not a sprint we're running here. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. And it's not about finishing it fastest. It's about finishing it well. Whole, intact, with my sanity intact, with my family intact. That's what the race is about. Now, look at this. In 2016, 54% of employees ended their work year with unused vacation days. I don't understand that world. All right. Collectively, 662 million vacation days were lost that year. Like, give them to me, right? Americans polled stated that the number one reason, this is so sad to me, for not using their vacation days was fear. Fear they would fall behind, fear they would lose momentum towards a career advancement, and fear they would get fired. Wow. Studies also showed that 2/3 of Americans who did take vacation days worked while they were on vacation. Seth just said, I've never done that. You're so... Now, we have an epidemic in this country. We have a disease of busyness. That's what it is. We have an epidemic of not being able to rest. We can't rest. We can't shut it off. We don't want to. We're about attaining and achieving. Now, this is not I know it feels contradictory to what I've been teaching you and Pastor Rod's been teaching you about running the race, but any runner knows, any runner who is successful in any kind of race they're running in their life, they understand that there has to be a point in my training and after my race and whatever it is that I pause and I let my body catch back up with healing. Because I've been burning it and spinning it and using it, I've got to pause for a minute, right? So, women, by the way, we are the worst at this because we carry around these imaginary trophies of busyness, and we like to talk about it. And let me tell you that nobody gives you that trophy. You created it. There is no official trophy giver who gives out trophies to people who are working themselves to death. We carry it around like a badge, right? Like we say things like, girl, you think you're tired. I have, seriously? Let me tell you that I spent the entire day at the ball field Saturday. Sunday night, we had life group. Monday, I had 2 kids that had soccer in different directions. My daughter had a ballet recital. I was volunteering to clean the building this week at church, and my teammate didn't show up, so I had to do her unit as well. My husband didn't get home before 8 every night, right? We do this, right? And then we're kind of ticked off because nobody reached out and put a gold sticker right here and said, good job, you're burning yourself out. High five, right? Yeah. High five on not doing it God's way, right? Men do it.
Yep. Watch out.
You do it. I worked 32 hours overtime last week. I'm slated to work 47 next week. I'm going to be nice. It's Father's Day. But we carry around, seriously, like this emotional trophy that's invisible, when the whole time God is saying, I'm telling you 10 times out of 10, if you continue on this path, you will hit a wall and there will be collateral. It is usually your health, and then right after that, it is usually your family. Your marriage, your children, your friendships, whatever those relationships are that are closest to you, that's who pays the price when it comes down to working ourselves literally to death in this country. We have a busyness disease. So basically, and I'm not going to read the study because it's long and complicated, lots of running words that I don't understand. But basically, scientific medical studies have shown that after races, after marathons, our muscles are inflamed. They're stretched, they are taxed, they are tired, and the inflammation isn't always seen right after the race. It's not always seen after 1 or 2 races. But after a while, if this runner doesn't have balance in their life and a regimen of peace and rest also in their life, your body is going to start hurting. It's going to start, your joints weren't meant to be taxed all day long, every day, and every muscle hurting and push and push and push and push and push. There is a reason that on the 7th day God rested, right? So the immune system is weakened after a race. People are more prone, if they're not good at resting, they're more prone after they've taxed themselves in a marathon and pushed it really hard to get the cold and flu. Bottom line. Because you know why? Your body has spent all it knows on getting you across the finish line. You can't live like that. It's not a sprint. This is a marathon. So here's the truth. You were born to run your race, but you weren't born to run yourself to death, to wear yourself out. So Hebrews 4:9-11 says, there still exists, therefore, a full and complete rest for the people of God. That sounds really good to me. He who experiences his real rest is resting from his own work as fully as God from his. Let us then be eager to know this rest for ourselves. If God is resting, God who keeps the world spinning, who keeps the universe floating exactly how it needs to around the sun, if he is able to rest, we can rest, right? Have you ever had one of those vacations that's not actually a vacation at all because you actually have these things called kids with you, right? It is a long time until you get to rest on vacation when you've got children. That's just the way it is. Before we had kids, Rod and I had 7 years of vacations, and they were glorious. We went to the Grand Canyon. Remember, babe, we would stay up till 1 and then sleep till 12 and then get up and just go do whatever we wanted all evening. We ate whatever we wanted. Vacation, you know what I mean? Total vacation. And you have 1 kid or you have 22 kids, it's all about kids on vacation. And you go to a condo, we have a condo our family, our extended family lets us use once a year. And so you go down there and we're all going to go in July. We've lost our minds. Like we're all going. All 500 of our kids and us are going. And you get to the condo, well, we're going to save money. It's a good way to do vacation. Yeah, it's also like we're still washing clothes. You still are cooking. You're saving money because you're cooking meals and cleaning them up, right? And there's sand everywhere. Everywhere. All 5 of our kids, they like breathe it. So they come in the house and everything, your bed has got sand in it, that's not vacation to me, right? It's vacation because we're together. Of course, we're going to have fun. We're going to make memories and do all those things. But it's not the vacation where you come back and go, man, I feel rested and ready to tackle the next thing. I'm ready to tackle something, right? And we used to be youth pastors. God help all those kids this is one of our teenagers right here. Wave your hand, Avery. She's not a teenager anymore, but she was one of our kids. And we'd go on youth retreats, and every time, without fail, we would come back, and somebody in the church would say, did y'all enjoy your vacation?
Yeah.
I would twitch every time. I thought, I wish I could carry like a lime in my pocket and just squirt it in their face when they would say something like that to me. Like, did that feel good? No, then that's how that youth retreat felt. Every day for 5 days with 60 teenagers. Right? That's not vacation. So what I'm saying to you is you can think you're doing all the things that are restful. If you're working on vacation, that's not vacation. If you're not even willing to have the conversation of we need to put some boundaries in place and dial it down so we can start enjoying our family, you're not resting. It's not vacation. It's not rest. The scripture that I love in that passage says work toward entering into rest. It is work to learn how to rest when you're an adult, when you're an achiever, when especially if you've got that type A personality and you just like to check boxes off. It's something you have to learn to do, is to rest. But aren't you glad that God's a good teacher? So there's 4 R words that we're going to go over today to help you enter into rest. 4 things that we have to master. Start with R. Number 1, we have to regroup. Rest means boundaries. Did you know, I'm going to be real frank with you about this, okay? I'm passionate about this issue right here. Do you know that somebody's crisis doesn't have to become your emergency? Now, we know a lot about this topic because our industry, our business is people-centered. That's what we do. This is why we're here. It's relationships, and every person has a story, and every family has a situation. And yes, there are times, even this year, we would get a text or a phone call at 2 a.m, and Rod is in the car, and he's headed to a hospital. Absolutely. Those things happen, and I'm telling you, we are eager to get in the car and go when those situations arise. They are very few and far between. But let me tell you what does happen a lot. And this is just across the board in 20 whatever years of ministry that we've been in pastoral ministry. Somebody will have a blow up with their spouse or a teenager or whatever, and 8 o'clock at night, and they'll message you, which we don't give our phone numbers out very much at all for this reason. But somebody will, blow up your phone, your Facebook, whatever, with "We're in crisis. My husband's yelled at me. You jerked door off the hinges, and are you physically in danger right now? Like, are you okay to be in your house tonight? Yes. Then you need to call me in the morning at the office." And most people get it, but every once in a while there's somebody who goes, "Are you kidding me? Like, we're in crisis over here." And I'm like, "I hear you, I get it, but I've got kids to bathe and put to bed, and I'm in the middle of homework. If you are literally in danger, I will be there. I'm on my way. I'll bring reinforcements." And no, I'm not in danger. I mean, I'm like, "You probably should call the police if it's that." No, we're not in that kind of danger. Okay, call me in the morning. Do you see what I'm saying? Because there have to be boundaries put into place because my family deserves it. Your family deserves peace. And that means that you can say, we're not staying with that relative when we go home for Thanksgiving. We're not. I don't care how many times he asks, we're not doing it because it sabotages my peace when we're doing that. That's a boundary that you deserve. We don't have to be ugly to people to have boundaries, right? And let me, on that counseling issue, this is one of those like pastor pet peeves. Everybody's got a few. This is one of those to me. Like, I don't understand sometimes why people will be in such crisis and you say, "You know what, I've got a slot at Tuesday at 11 and I've got one Wednesday at 1. Which one of those will work for you?" Well, I can't take off work for that. But I'm going to tell you right now that if they've got a sinus infection and they need an antibiotic, their tails will be at the doctor getting that antibiotic, right? It's about boundaries. It's about priority. That's the bottom line.
That's right.
Moving on.
Preaching now.
Boundaries are actually healthy. They actually bring life. It's okay for you to just say no to somebody. You can just say no, and you don't even have to give them a whole list of why. Can you keep my kid tomorrow? No, I can't. I'm sorry. You don't have to go, no, I can't because, and then think of 13 reasons. You can just say, no, I can't. Right? It's okay, I promise you. And you know what? This is freedom. You can say no to your kids, and they'll be okay. Here's the real deal. And I'm not telling you can say no about like stuff. No, we can't get a $300 whatever you're wanting right now. We have no problem saying that. But I'm talking about, Mom, will you play Candyland with me again? Even though I cheat every round? You can look at that kid and go, no. Why? And then you can say this, because I don't want to right now. I promise you, they'll be okay. Because here's the deal. At some point in their life, she said, it feels good. No, bye. No, this is the deal. And I'm not saying it to be mean. I'm telling you that your kids will be healthier for it. Because at some point in their life, they're going to meet the person who will not do what they want. And I want to be the one who equips them to be prepared for that. Right? Mama deserves boundaries too. Lock the bathroom door. You don't even have to be using the bathroom. You can just sit in there. And when they say, what are you doing? You say, I'm in the bathroom. And when they put their little fingers under the door, you can go. Or you can do this. Take your phone and slide it under the door like that. And go play. I'm just in the bathroom right now. Right? You can have house rules physically written down on a poster board. And if you've got young kids, I urge you to do that and have it written down so there's no confusion on what's expected of this family, right? So I have some homework for you. I want you to write down what you want your soul to look like a year from now. Yes. Not your finances, not your marriage, not your children. What do you want your soul to look like? That word soul means my mind, my will, and my emotions. What do I want my mind, my will, and my emotions to look like 1 year from now? Okay? Yep. Then the next thing I want you to do, if you're writing it down, is I want you to write what boundaries do I need to put in place in order to make that happen? Wow. So what do I want my soul to look like? It's one thing to want it. Then I have to make a plan. This is the work to enter into rest part. I have to have a plan to enter into that rest. Because Proverbs 29:18 says, where there is no vision, people perish. In other words, another translation says, where there's no vision, people cast off restraint. Yes. That means that there's no system, there's no organization, it's a free-for-all, we do what we want, there's no way to make this streamlined and godly and whole. We just do it the way we want to do it at the moment. We have to write it down, we have to have a system. This is what we are working toward as a family. This is our family mission statement, and this is how we're going to get there. Yes. Right? Number 2, if we're going to rest, we have to reevaluate. I have to assess which I value more, maintaining the appearance of accomplishment or living in rest. Which one of those things do I value more? Because most of the time, you can't have both of those at the same time. I'm not saying we shouldn't have goals. This is a series about the race, for crying out loud. We are moving. That's the whole point, is it's a race. We're running. We're going towards something. But if I am hear me, millennials especially, if I am so focused on an early retirement that I'm missing every Saturday morning breakfast with my kids, I can promise you I am not parenting in the grace of God. Right. I'm not. Well, I want to be able to travel the world by the time I'm 45. It's not worth it to me if I travel the world at 45 and I've lost my kids in the process. If they think I cared more about being able to retire than I did having cereal with them twice a month. It happens real fast. Have you noticed how fast this stuff starts happening? Like you turn around and it's their birthday again. Like, I don't know how it happens this fast. The older they get, the faster it goes, y'all. I'm telling you, it's really fast. Once they hit that middle school, it's done. It's flying. And yeah, I want to have goals for my family, financial goals for my family. We've got goals for this church. We've got goals as our extended family. We all have purposes and goals, but in the meantime, all of us are keeping each other in check. My kids, my marriage, my friendships, my coworkers, those are the things I'm taking to eternity with me. Those are the things that I've got to focus the most attention on right now, right? Yeah. Mark 8:36, Jesus himself said, what do you benefit if you gain the whole world but forfeit your soul? Again, your mind, your will, and your emotions. If I lose my mind, I lose my family in the process. It's not worth what I can put in the bank for them, right? You know, and I'm convinced that one of the reasons we don't take breaks in our race is because we genuinely don't know who we are if we're not running. It's in the stillness, it's in that rest period of our life when the past haunts us, when regret raises its ugly head in our heart, when all the coulda, shoulda, woulda, what if, oh, if I had only, all of those things. You know, at some point you have to turn around and face those things, right? You have to turn around and look at them and tell them exactly who they are and exactly who you are. We can't outrun it. You're not going to fill your life up with enough noise and stuff and progress to outrun those things. Those are heart issues that we have to slow down. And in that period of rest, let the Lord start to remind us that we are not what we failed at. We are not the sum of our failures. We are not the sum of all of the things we've done wrong, that we are His. We've got to remember who we are, but we don't know who we are and we don't like the silence. So, you know, if you're a task person, and I'm weird about that, like I am about some things, and some things I'm very people-oriented. But when it comes to my house, like the function of my house, I am super task-driven. And like I will drive my husband and my kids crazy about crumbs and the Windex on like the glass door. Like, why? You got a French door, do they have to touch every panel to go out on the deck? I literally don't understand it. The doorknob is as big as life. Just touch the doorknob.
Help her, Jesus.
Why do you have to do this? Why? It had to be Rod or Abby. I don't know which one it was. It could have been either one of them, and that's the truth. Why were there nose and lip prints on one right up here? Like, why? And I'm constantly like wiping it and cleaning it, and this is an area where I'm having to learn to enter into rest. Because what's happening, and I'm realizing it, is my kids are getting bigger. And they're getting closer to leaving my house. And I don't want them to only remember I vacuumed the floor every minute of the day, right? And I'm very task motivated. So when we sit down at dinner, I'm like, all right, let's eat our food, let's pray. Okay, everybody eat your food. And we do the ABC game like almost every meal. What are you thankful for? It starts with A. Or everybody think of a game show a show on TV that starts with A, your B, your C. Lots of talk and communication. I'm like, get the food, get done, eat, let's go, let's clean it up, right? I'm always done first. I'm always like rinsing my plate out in the sink and turning around going, all right, was that good? All right, y'all done? All right, let's hurry up. Come on. And, you know, Rod's like, no, we're not done. You need to sit down. Walker, are you done? Have 3 more bites. Let's go. Get it. 3 more bites. You know, let's go. 3 more bites. And one day there I literally took Windex, because I cleaned my table off with Windex. Like, I had a glass table at the time. I have a wood table now. And I'd taken the Windex and was spraying the table off, and Rod's still eating. So help me God, it got in his food, and then it just went down for real.
No, you got another plate.
He said, hey, I'm still eating this food right here on this plate that you just sprayed Windex in. I was like, oh,
That's the truth.
sorry about that. Sorry. In my defense, I've been on my feet all day, and I want to say, I don't care about that. I'm eating my food right now. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So that was like a wake-up call, though, for me of I'm missing the process, right? I'm missing the memories because I just got to get it done so I can finally sit down for the first time in 13 hours. You know what I'm saying? Yes. Listen to this. When we are constantly focused on what's next, we are constantly missing what's now. It's the constant moments we miss the most that we miss now that will haunt us the most at 85. Legacy is built now but appreciated then. Legacy means I have to be present now for it to matter later. Legacy is found in the now, not in the next. Stings. It stings and stinks. Number 3, I've got to replenish. When a runner takes, different runners I've talked to say, you know, sometimes I take 3 days off after a marathon. I've talked to one who said I take a full 7 days off after I run a marathon. So whatever their process is, none of them say, oh, I take off like 4 days and I lay in the bed and eat all the Golden Grahams. Like that's, like every day I just like eat all the Doritos. And no, they don't. They're like, I listen to my body. I sleep. I drink a lot of water. I eat the food that I need, that my body is crying out for. I take my nutrition. I do my supplements, all of those things, right? That's what they're there to do. They know that rest doesn't mean I quit. Doesn't mean I throw in the towel. It just means I'm taking a minute. I'm listening to my body, listening to my heart, and I'm going to do what it's requiring of me to do to become rested. So, you know, what a runner's doing is he is putting back into him what the race has taken out of him. You know, a lot of runners, like I said, believe that the rest is the most important part of their training because it always will vary and they have to listen. You have to really listen. What is my body needing? What's my heart needing right now? What are my emotions needing right now? According to a Greek legend, in ancient Athens, a man noticed the great storyteller Aesop playing childish games with some little boys. He laughed and jeered at Aesop, asking him why he wasted his time in such frivolous activity. Aesop responded by picking up a bow, loosening its string, and placing it on the ground. And then he said to the critical Athenian, "Now answer the riddle if you can. Tell us what the unstrung bow implies." The man looked at it for several moments and had no idea what point Aesop was trying to make. And Aesop explained, if you keep a bow always bent, it will break eventually. But if you let it go slack, it will be more fit for use when you need it. Isn't that good? If you're so driven and focused and determined and like so uptight that your kids are afraid that at any minute they could spill their milk and make you lose it, that is a very unhealthy place to live. Not just for your kids, for you. You deserve more peace than that, right? You know, God rested. Look at some of this. Genesis 2:2, God finished all the work he'd been doing, and on the seventh day he rested from all of his work. The Sabbath was not created so that there's something another thing you got to do in the week. The Sabbath was created to give you a break. I love it. Jesus said, man was not created for the Sabbath. Sabbath was created for the man. God loves you. He wants you to take a minute. Luke 5:16 says, as often as possible, Jesus withdrew to out of the way places for prayer. Mark 3:7, Jesus withdrew with his disciples to the lake. They were probably playing like lakeside volleyball or something. Luke 6:12-13, Jesus went out to a mountainside to pray and spent the night praying to God. And when morning came, he called his disciples with him. Luke 13:1, Jesus went out of his house and sat by the lake. We have no idea what he was doing. Right? It's the best. He was probably fishing. Did you see the shack? That part where Jesus was like, look at all these, look at that. I've been trying to catch that fish right there for like days. And that guy said, just tell it to jump in your boat. And he said, what's the fun of that? Right? Jesus understood that I've got to rest. I'm just going to sit by the lake. And I bet you when Jesus was sitting by the lake by himself, nobody bothered him. Right? Matthew 14:33, after Jesus had dismissed the crowds, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. And when evening came, he was still there alone. So, you know, Jesus didn't complete his mission on the earth because he was superhuman. He was a man. You get that right? He stripped himself of his deity, of his power, of his halo, whatever you want to call it, and he walked the earth as a man. But he completed his mission as a man for one reason, and one reason alone. He stayed connected to his source. Constantly, in busy seasons of ministry, all of a sudden Jesus would just disappear. Where'd he go? I don't know. He went out by the lake again. He had to. There comes a point when you go, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I need a minute, right? You know, your battery on your phone can be at 3% and it's about to die. If it gets to 3% and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to find my charger and plug it in. And you plug it in and get back on the phone on that FaceTime call or whatever it was you were doing. And it can stay at 3% for a really long time, plugged into the wall. And eventually it's going to go to 8%. And eventually, even though you're still talking on it, it's going to get to 17%. It's going to take a little bit longer, but the numbers are going to climb in the right direction if what? If I stay plugged into the source. It's okay if you're at 3% today. It's okay if you're at 1 and you're just barely making it. If you plug in to your Father, you will not die here. You won't. He is your power source. You know, make worship part of your daily routine. We brush our teeth, for crying out loud. Right? My daughter, you won't find a kid who loves music more than her. She loves music. But at some point, I'll say, hey, Abby, have you listened to, and she calls them Jesus songs. Have you listened to any Jesus songs today? No, ma'am. Did you listen to any yesterday? No, ma'am. How about last week? It's been a while. I'm like, you know what I'm going to tell you to do? Don't listen to anything else till you listen to 3 Jesus songs. You can do that as a parent. I don't care if they think it's cool or not. This is what we're going to do in this house, right? So she will, and she'll say later, I'll say, what songs did you listen to? And she'll tell me back, and she'll say, almost every time this kid will say, man, I felt so, like on the second song, I just started feeling like my attitude changing. Man, I was feeling good. I didn't want to like throat punch Walker anymore after I listened to that one. Seriously, she's getting it. This is changing my mood. It's changing my day, right? And if we can open up Facebook 55 times during the day on our app, we can have a Bible app that we just pop up for a second in the parking lot, in a car line, wherever we are for 5 minutes, and we can read something. We have time. We do have time. One man challenged another to an all-day wood chopping contest. The challenger worked very hard, stopping only for a brief lunch, and the other man took a leisurely lunch and several breaks during the day. At the end of the day, the challenger was surprised and annoyed to find that the other fellow had chopped substantially more wood than he had. I don't get it. He said, every time I checked, you were taking a rest, yet you chopped more wood than I did. But you didn't notice, said the winning woodsman, that I was sharpening my axe every time I sat down to rest. That's what this is about. This is about you giving yourself permission to lock away for 5 minutes, for 30 minutes, for an hour, whatever it is that your schedule allows you to do to sharpen your axe. To sharpen your axe, because you still got wood to cut. You still got stuff to do for the kingdom of God and for your family. Psalm 23:4 says, even though I walk through the darkest valley, your rod and staff comfort me. You know what that means? David, who killed Goliath, was a shepherd. Remember, he was a boy. And shepherds would have these staffs. You can look this up. This is fascinating history right here. They would have these wooden staffs that they took out to their sheep to protect their animals from other animals, and they would use it to guide their sheep back where they're supposed to be, to get somebody unstuck from the side of a rock, whatever it was. They used this for all kinds of things. But one of the coolest things they did is use it as a journal, and they would start carving stories in pictures and in words on their staff. So when David said, your rod and your staff comfort me, even though I'm going through the valley of the shadow of death, your rod and your staff comfort me, he literally was meaning this piece of wood that I'm holding here in my hand holds story after story after story of God's faithfulness in my life. You know why a teenage boy, and it's not just because they're crazy, because they are, it's not just because they're crazy that he believed he could walk in and kill that giant. It was because he had been a shepherd for many years by then. And he had had many encounters with wild animals and many encounters with dangerous situations where he could have lost his life, that he would journal on the side of his staff. So in the moment of decision, no matter when it was in David's life, he had this staff in his hand and he could say, you were with me when I killed this bear. You were with me when a lion tried to take out half my flock and we destroyed it. You're going to be with me when I go kill this Philistine. That's sharpening your axe. But you know what? The stories of God's faithfulness will die with our generation if we don't write them down and keep them somewhere where our kids can know that this God that is becoming more and more watered down every day in their culture is really who he says he is. It's one thing to hear it in the Bible. My kids love Bible stories, and I know they believe it, but you know what they really grab onto? The story of their daddy running from the law in the Himalayan mountains to get Bibles into the hands of the Nepalese Indians. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are good stuff, stories that is in your heritage somewhere. And we have to write it down on our rod and staff, because when you are in the valley of the shadow of death, only his faithful track record will comfort you.
Yes, amen.
That's it. And number 4, the last one, our word is we have to reconnect. At some point when you're resting, if you're really a runner, you really get it, that you've got this race that you got to keep running, you'll lace your shoes back up. And you'll get back out on the pavement and you'll start running again, right? And when you've been exhausted for a long time, it's hard to remember why you started something, isn't it? You ever been going through something in your life, a really hard process? I mean, for us, when we launched the church, there were so many, I can't even tell you how many difficult places there are in launching something like that. And then, just so many things like that in our life that we'll look at each other and go, whose idea was this again? And then everybody will go, I'm pretty sure it was yours. And me and Seth are always going, I think it was yours. No, it was definitely yours. Whose idea was it for us to have so many kids so fast all together at the same time? Like, whose idea was it for us? Whose idea was this for me to go back to school? Whose idea? You know what I'm saying? When we get into a tight place, it's hard to remember why. Why in the world did I start this? I don't care how hurt your heart is today and how exhausted your emotions feel. Listen to me. There is a why. At one time, you believed that why with all your heart. At one point, that why was why you put your feet on the floor in the morning. It didn't mean it was easy every time. It just meant you believed it. With every cell of your body, you believed in the why. Remember Hebrews 12:2, it says, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith, for the joy set before him, he endured the cross. He had a why to go through with what he went through as a human being. Matthew 26, Jesus came to them to a place called Gethsemane and said to his disciples, sit here while I go pray. And he took the guys, and I'm going to paraphrase a lot of this for time's sake. And he said, my soul is grieved to the point of death. I need you to keep watch for me. I'm failing. He knows tomorrow I'm going to lay my life down for the world. This is heavy. This isn't like, oh, tomorrow I have to go to a meeting I don't want to go to, right? Tomorrow I have to take the kids to the doctor. No, tomorrow I'm laying my life down for humanity. This is heavy. He gets it. Verse 39, it said he went a little further from them and he fell on his face and he prayed saying, my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me, yet not as I will, but as you will. He came back and they're sleeping and he's like, y'all, really? You can't stay awake with me for an hour? Keep watching and praying so you won't enter into temptation. The spirit's willing, the flesh is weak. And he went away again the second time and prayed and said, my Father, if this cannot pass away unless I drink it, your will be done. Again he came and found them sleeping and their eyes were heavy, and he left them again and went away for the third time praying, saying it all again once more. So he's on his face in the garden. The Bible says that he was sweating drops of blood. We know what was happening physiologically in his body is that he was so strained and so overwhelmed with grief and anxiety and fear that the capillaries in his brain, in his forehead are starting to burst, and he is literally bleeding from capillaries because of stress. Like he is that overwhelmed with the assignment ahead of him, and he is a human being. And he is on the floor before his Father saying, if there's any other plan we haven't thought of, surely there is something that we have not thought of, because this feels heavy and I'm scared. I'm literally bleeding from my head about this. And then every time he would get to that place, listen to me, he would remember his why. I believe, now of course he said, not my will but yours, but you know what the Father's will was? Saving you. So I believe when he got to that moment where he could not breathe because of fear, panic attack don't even cover what Jesus was going through in that garden, that he's on his face. If there's any other way, let this pass from me. He saw your face, Rachel. This is my why. Christy, he said, she's why. Not my will, but Christy. Not what I want, but Mike. Like imagine that. The king of the universe is on his face in sorrow and he gets back up because he saw your face. You are his why. Your why. And you've got a why. Do you remember who you were before life convinced you that you weren't that person? Before the finances failed and your friends walked off, before the luster was gone, and before the new car smell wore off of your dreams? Do you remember the nights that turned into mornings, sitting on the couch talking about the dream, the plan, the reason you were cashing it all in on this one deep calling of your soul? Do you remember when you were young enough to believe you could, healthy enough to keep trying to achieve it, and infused with hope enough to get up even when the skinned knees of your dream were hurting from falling down time after time? You were a fighter then. Not necessarily smarter, but smart enough to know what business school can't teach and a professor on this earth cannot impart to you. It's the truth that sets you free and makes you put your feet on the floor in the morning. The question that only you and your maker can answer. The one word that holds the truth no other human eye can see. And that word is why. The why would keep you up at night, researching, studying, bettering your craft and lengthening your borders. The why would fuel you on cold mornings and invigorate you in the summer heat. It would push you to work harder, longer hours when your peers would go home to cable TV and couches and made you restless in the middle of the night with brainstorms. It would push you. It would convince you that generations were waiting on your dream's completion and that you were born for this intersection of time. That the why didn't consult your body for permission to wake you up in the early morning, and it didn't ask for input from the naysayers who wrote off your ambition as frivolity of youth. See, we were taught all of our lives to answer these questions to solve our problems. Who, what, where, when, and why. But who is not your business. He will bring the people to you and take you to people. He knows them and he sees you. You haven't met all of them yet, these people who will help it come to pass in your life. You may meet them today, maybe tomorrow. What is none of your concern? You can't fathom what the what will look like in its entirety. And the truth is that the final outcome will surpass your human dreams. That your what and his what may be similar, but trust me when I admonish you to remember that from where he sits, the what is a finished product that will blow your mind. Where is a place circled on a map that only his eye can see? You aren't to concern yourself with location. If you saw the length of the journey to that place, you'd try to fast track it and you'd miss the process. Don't worry about the distance. Don't concern yourself with GPS. Walk beside him, and he will naturally lead you there. And when? God laughs. He doesn't comprehend Google Calendars. He doesn't wear an Apple Watch, and he has never one time set an alarm clock on his phone. The when will wear you out the fastest and frustrate you beyond your human limits. My friend, your only focus is why. Why would you push yourself over and over only to fail time and time again? Why would you get back up when no one else believes in you and every eye is waiting for you to fail? Why would you reach further next time knowing very well you will land on your face? Why would you keep running when your sides hurt and your legs burn and you can't catch a breath or keep the sweat out of your eyes? Why would you risk loving them again when they may walk away and leave you holding nothing? Why would you go back to school to achieve it when you've ended up in this place of exhaustion time after time? Why would you consider putting the running shoes back on the feet of your heart and hitting that pavement that has skinned your knees so many times? Why? I'll tell you why. Because you, deep in your soul, know there is a longing. You were made for something, for a purpose, for something more. You were meant to leave an unmistakable mark on this world. You have an emotional and spiritual fingerprint that you leave wherever you go. You walk into a room and heaven notices. It sits on ready, hopeful, with every sunrise that today will be the day you'll put your feet back on that floor of your why. See, one day you will join the grandstands of heaven right next to Moses, Daniel, David, Esther, Mary, and Paul. And you'll take your place in those bleachers and you'll scream and yell and wear the big foam finger as you cheer on your grandchildren and their grandchildren because you ran your race and you finished it well. So what is your why? God already has the other questions answered, the who, what, where, and when, and he knows the answers to them. They're not for you to worry about right now. He's waiting for you to dig deep. Look harder, answer that question, and answer it today. When you remember your why, you'll lace your shoes back up, and my friend, you will run again. You've got a why. You're too focused on the who, what, where, and when to remember why. Why? Like, why would I ever try that again? You ever said that? Like, why would I even go back through that again? Why would I ever try that again? There is a why. You would have never started believing you could do it to begin with if there wasn't a why. So today I'm going to pray for you before you leave. And at the end of the service, we're going to have the prayer team up here, and I'm going to be up here with them to pray for you because some of you, honestly, I knew this morning in my heart that some of you would be running your race again by the end of the day, that all it was going to take was for one glimpse of the memory of why you started. It's been so long. There's been so many things added to the top of it. So much pain, so much disappointment, so much grief, so many logistics that have just sucked the life out of your dream that you have forgotten the why. And if you can remember the why, you'll start feeling that hope again. You'll start remembering, why did I believe I could do this at 17? When I threw my cap up in the air at graduation and held that diploma, why did I believe I could do this? Why did I want to pursue this? Why? You know the answer. Don't worry about the other ones. You'll know those when it's time for you to know those. But today, you need to remember why. Let me pray for you. Holy Spirit, you are the God of why. You're the God of who, what, where, when, and why. And I thank you that today, where we sit in our chair, when we've forgotten, when it hurts, when we have walked off because we failed too many times and we were too exhausted, too beat up, too scarred, too bruised, too many skinned knees, too many turned ankles, too many injuries along this race. I ask you today so sweetly to remind us of why. Why did we start to begin with? Why did I marry this man? Why did we have these kids? Why did I choose this career? Why did I believe this would succeed? Why? In your gentle way, remind us, because we've got a race to run. And the only way we're going to fail is if we don't put our shoes on. So today, I thank you that we can blow the dust off those things. We may not run the race today, but we can hold on to the why for a few more minutes today. And we can go to sleep thinking about the why and wake up thinking about the why and trust you to answer the other questions. If you're here today and you haven't asked Jesus to be your Savior, we just want to give you the opportunity to do that before we walk out of this building today. And we always pray this prayer together, and we invite you to pray it with us. Say, Jesus, I believe you came into this world. You lived a sinless life. You took my sin. You took my judgment. My past is gone. My future is spotless. I call you my Lord. Amen.